I think writers are outsiders. You're within your community, but also without taking notes, observing what's going on around you and figuring out where you fit in. Because when you're a writer, nobody wants to read your stuff, everyone hates you. And if you internalize that hatred early, you're prepared for when you go out into the world. I'm Colson Whitehead, a writer, fiction mostly. I was one of the few black kids in my white high school in Upper West Side. But in the summers, my family and I would come out to Sag Harbor, Long Island. And it's in the Hamptons. There's been a black community out here going for the last 100 years. I was one of the few black kids in Sag Harbor who liked Susie and the Banshees. Where does that fit into my work? I'm not totally sure. I get a lot of ideas just sitting around. I'm reading a newspaper article or staring off into space in a depressive haze. I keep writing about New York. I think if I figured out New York, I would stop talking about it. I don't think anyone's really capable of putting their hands around it. I love pop culture. If I can use humor and satire, I'm really happy. I like American history and race in America. Last summer, Nickel Boys was coming out in a lot of European countries. It was after the George Floyd protests, his death, and the aftermath. And people say, oh, it's very prescient. You're writing about inequities in law enforcement and then George Floyd. This actually is not prescient. If you write about a f***ed up racial incident, wait 5 minutes, another f***ed up racial incident's gonna come along. So little has changed that it ends up resonating. So I'm not being prescient, I'm just observing and doing reportage in a certain kind of way. I am asked to, give my pronouncements about black culture and American history. I feel if I have something to say, I put it in the book. That's why I write books. I'd rather it be historians and sociologists and experts in criminal justice as opposed to some jackass novelist. So I'll stay in my lane and the sociologists can, do their good work and stay in their lanes. I was in Brooklyn and came across a reference to the Underground Railroad and remembered how when I was a little kid, those words were so visual and resonant that I thought this network of runaway slaves was a literal train beneath the earth. The Underground Railroad, a novel about American history and slavery and how the country came to be, it's not real, it's not rooted in reality. And it allowed me to do a lot of different things that I couldn't do if I stuck to the truth. Jumping around and devising different alternative Americas, I might approach some idea of a real America.
Supremacists in America.
A lot more people like that than my other books.
The prize in fiction goes to the novel The Underground Railroad by Colson Whitehead.
Here I saw a dappled wonder settling across the fields, hovering on angel wings, brandishing a blazing shield.
Underground Railroad was the first adaptation. I think I had too many black people in my early books. I should have considered that if I wanted them to get made. But Barry Jenkins, the director of Underground, was unafraid.
This will be a show if, for, and by black people. Adapting The Underground Railroad was a big challenge. The most difficult thing I've ever done in my creative life. He just has this way of writing in a way that conjures images. I think he's really good at keeping his finger on the pulse of American society, American life. All these things that were at the periphery that are now at the center of American consciousness have also gone from the periphery into the center of his work. It's easy to assume that by default, his books are about the lives and souls of black folk, but that's also a choice. I think it's a really beautiful choice.
In 7th grade, I got a lot of permission to be a writer by reading an excerpt from Invisible Man. Here's a black writer, here's a weirdo, I'm a weirdo, maybe I can write. Even though I feel very settled, and I've been fortunate with the reception of the last few books, I am on the outside always just sort of trying to find little bits of things for my nest that I can use to fix up what I'm working on. Observing what's going on around you and figuring out where you fit in.